In the 1920s, the public developed a deep fascination with watching other people suffer for entertainment. Couples shuffled in circles for days in brutal dance marathons until they physically collapsed on the floor. Men climbed up and sat on flagpoles for weeks at a time. If an endurance stunt could draw a crowd, someone was willing to risk their health to perform it. Charles Cassius Pyle understood this appetite perfectly. As America's first modern sports agent, Pyle made a fortune turning athletic talent into a lucrative spectacle. By 1928, he was looking for his next big payout. His next massive scheme relied entirely on geography, and this map shows his proposed route, a 3,422-mile path starting in Los Angeles, following the newly commissioned, mostly dirt path of Route 66 to Chicago, and finally stretching all the way to New York City, on foot. To convince people to run across an entire continent, Pyle offered a massive, life-changing reward, $25,000 to whoever crossed the finish line first. He had no intention of advancing sports science. Pyle saw an opportunity to package human exhaustion into a rolling, city-to-city carnival, selling tickets and advertising every single night along the highway. The starting line in Los Angeles didn't attract a field of elite Olympians. The 199 men who showed up were out-of-work laborers, first-generation immigrants, and Midwest farm boys who desperately needed the cash. Pyle promised them a fully supported journey. He claims his traveling roadshow would follow them the entire way, providing hot food, clean beds, and round-the-clock medical care. There was only one problem. Pyle had no reliable way to pay for the enormous daily overhead required to move an entire tent city across the United States for 3 months straight. The entire event was built on a financial house of cards. For Pyle's business to survive, he needed the race to be as cheap to run as possible. But for the runners to survive, they needed the resources Pyle could no longer afford. That conflict became brutally obvious on day one. As the runners hit the unpaved, sun-baked dirt of the Mojave Desert, the temperature spiked, and the reality of the distance set in. 77 men quit or were pulled from the race almost immediately, sidelined by shock, heat exhaustion, and crippling blisters. The foot injuries were so widespread and grotesque that newspaper reporters mocked the grand spectacle, instantly renaming it the Bunion Derby. The promised luxury never materialized. Runners were given a meager $1.50 a day for food, nowhere near enough calories, and slept on dirty cots in thin canvas tents, kept awake by the loud nightly sideshows Pyle ran to generate ticket sales. Within a week, any illusion of a glamorous athletic competition had vanished. The Derby had devolved into a miserable, daily grind for basic survival against the elements. By the time the surviving pack reached the Midwest, Pyle's operation was bleeding money. Ticket sales in the small towns were wildly inconsistent, and the daily cost of feeding and housing the men was dragging him into ruin. He needed to slash his overhead immediately. To do that, he needed the race to end sooner, and he needed fewer men to reach the finish line, so he wouldn't have to pay out the secondary cash prizes. This chart shows how Pyle solved his problem. While early stages in California demanded 15 to 25 miles a day, Pyle began artificially lengthening the daily routes in the Midwest to 40, 50, and eventually one absurd stage of over 74 miles. The math worked exactly as he intended. Men who had already absorbed 2,000 miles of physical damage over 6 weeks were pushed past their physiological limits and forced out of the race entirely. Yet a few men simply refused to break. Johnny Salo, a tough policeman from New Jersey, kept pace with a quiet 20-year-old farm boy from Oklahoma named Andy Payne, who pushed through 40-mile days while suffering from a severe case of tonsillitis. Payne had one specific reason to keep moving. He had calculated exactly what it would take to pay off his family's farm back home, and that singular focus overrode the mounting failure of his own body. Pyle had engineered a logistical meat grinder perfectly calibrated to bankrupt the physical limits of the human body. He just failed to account for the stubbornness of the men caught inside it. On May 26, 1928, 84 days after leaving Los Angeles, the surviving runners hobbled their way into Madison Square Garden in New York City. Against a system specifically designed to eliminate them, 55 men successfully completed the entire 3,422-mile journey. The winner was Andy Payne. He claimed the $25,000 prize, returned to Oklahoma, paid off the mortgage on his family's land, and never ran competitively again. Pyle's luck ran out. He attempted a reverse race from New York to Los Angeles the following year, which ended in complete bankruptcy. The operation collapsed so thoroughly that the 1929 finishers never even received their prize money. Pyle designed the Bunion Derby to be a cheap, profitable exploit of human misery. Instead, he accidentally proved that ordinary farm boys and laborers were capable of sustaining a level of endurance that wouldn't be seen again until the birth of modern ultramarathoning decades later.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us.